and welcome to Tutorial 5, editing a green or blue loop in GarageBand on an iMac and iPad. I'm Lyndal Murphy and I'll be taking you through a couple of steps on how to actually edit your green loops and also editing the quality of your blue loops. So let's have a listen to the project. This is a simple 4-chord progression that I've worked on, and pay attention to the melody that is played within the saxophone, as that is the melody that we will be editing. Okay, so when we want to edit our green loop, if I double click on the saxophone loop here, you'll notice that a screen will come up, either the piano roll or the score. So if I want to edit the piano roll, I can actually click on the green lines that you see on the screen and move them up and down. So I can find the green lines by moving the tab up and down or using my trackpad on the iMac. So you can see the notes here as well in the score. I can also click on these notes and drag them around. And I can do the same thing with the notes in the piano roll. Just make sure that when you're editing the note in bar 1, it doesn't go before bar 1 starts, as the note won't actually be played at the beginning of the bar. So the note doesn't really catch on in bar 1 if it is slightly behind bar 1. The next thing I'm doing is actually copying and pasting using Command C and moving the note up and down, as you can see there. So I can copy a note and then move that note to wherever I need. So we'll solo the saxophone track and have a listen to this minor change I've done. The next thing that we'll actually look at editing is changing the velocity within our notes in the green loop. So you'll notice on the screen here that there is a velocity line, a faint white line within the green lines here. So if I zoom in, I can see it a little bit clearer. I can move the loop around, but to actually edit the velocity, you have to highlight it and then move the velocity tab on your left. So when we talk about editing the velocity of the note, it means to change the strength of how loud or soft the note is being played. If we want to quantize a note, that means to make it sound a little bit more in time, or if we want it to sound slightly out of time, we can change it there as well. I could change the strength of the quantizing of the note here if I need, within the regions tab. Other effects that we can look at for our green loop can be within this blue button here with the lines. So where it says controller on the left here, we can change it to different effects. So if we want to change the volume, modulation, expression, or pitch bend, we can change the note this way. So let's have a look at pitch bend. So I'm just going to change the pitch. So it's going to be slightly sharp on the first note and it'll bend downwards. So let's have a listen. So as you can hear, it's quite sharp. If we want our pitch to start off in the correct key, we need to make sure we put it right in the middle here. So I'm going to edit this note so it goes slightly flat, but you need to have 2 dots before you add in the middle dot. So we're going to have this saxophone do a little bit of a pitch bend. So let's listen. Other functions that we can use can be, say, the sustain pedal. We would probably use that on a piano sound, not necessarily a saxophone, as a saxophone doesn't have a sustain pedal on it. So let's have a look now at modulation. So modulation means to actually change the quality of the tone. It's going to sound like the saxophone player is adding a bit of vibrato or wavering the note. So we'll just edit it slightly and let's have a listen. As this is just a small introduction to using and adding effects in GarageBand with our green loops, the best way to be really proficient in using these green loops and editing them is to have a go yourself and to not be afraid of experimenting or making mistakes. Remember, you can always type Command-Z if you make a mistake to undo your mistake. When we're talking about adding automation, what we are doing is programming our effects to change when we want them to. So I've just pressed the button up the top where the yellow connector line is, and we're going to just edit the volume of our saxophone part. So you notice a line comes up, and what I'm going to do is have the volume gradually fade in, and then it's going to get quite loud just before bar 4. So if it's peaking too much, the easiest way that we can change this so it's not blaring the loud is just move it slightly down where that third dot is. I can pan, so if I want to pan my sound from left to right speaker, I can do that if I want. Echo effects, reverb, I can change the EQ to where I want. So in a nutshell, I can switch on these effects when I want within the track. So I can effectively turn these effects on and off to where I need them using the automation line. To delete these dots, I'm clicking each dot individually and then pressing delete on the iMac keypad. Remember that if you have deleted all your dots, make sure you turn the volume up on your track that you're editing so you can hear it again. The difference between editing the green loops compared to the blue loops is that when you double click on the blue loop, you notice that there is a waveform that appears on the track. So the blue loops are recorded live sounds that you can only really edit the quality of the sound, not necessarily change the notes as much. Okay, so if we want to transpose part of the loop, the best way for me to show you is by selecting one of the blue loops from bar 1 to 2 and adjusting the pitch of that loop compared to the ones that are in bar 3 onwards. So I have one loop selected here and I'm going to edit the pitch of this loop so it's different to the other loops. So as you can hear, the pitch is a lot higher in bars 1 to 2 compared to the loops that are after bar 2. When we're EQing or equalizing and compressing our loops, we don't necessarily have to do this just to the blue loops. We can add these effects to our green loops as well. So what I'm going to do is show you a demonstration of how we can EQ or equalize certain frequencies on one of our tracks. So I'm going to select the same blue track and just highlight certain frequencies. So as you can see at the end there, I actually brought up on the side there all of the frequencies and highlighted 1K. We can omit frequencies, so if there's a sound that we don't actually like, we can omit them and drag them down. But remember that you can always automate your EQ if you need. On our controls tab, there is a compressor there and we can adjust the amount of compression we have, but there's also EQ that we can adjust. So let's have a listen. And what I'll do next is adjust our sends, so we'll adjust the ambience and then the reverb. So as you can see, there's quite a lot that you can do with your effects on the blue and green loops. Some of the effects covered in this tutorial today will be covered in a lot more detail in tutorial 8 when we're finalizing a project. As you can see on the iPad screen here, I have a selection of blue and green loops. So let's have a listen. Okay, so we're going to edit a keyboard track that I've recorded, so the light cycle track. And what I'll do is I will solo the track and we'll have a listen to it before we edit it. And what I need to do is just double tap on the loop and then I just press edit. And what will happen is the screen will appear where there's a guitar fret on the left hand side, and I can press on each of the notes if I need to get the right pitch, and then I can move these notes around if I need. So I'm just going to extend these notes by clicking on them with my finger and then pulling on the right edge of each of these notes. So it's only a slight adjustment to the note. So it's just extending the bass notes a little bit more in that octave melody there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just edit every single upper note, or every second upper note. The next thing that I'm going to do is copy a note and then paste it on another bar. So I'm just going to copy this A note here just by pressing it and then copy. I then need to move my playhead where I want the note to go and then press paste. So the next thing that I'll show is how to change the velocity of each note. So if you press on it, tap on it, then click velocity, you can see that I am adjusting the velocity of this note. So I'm going to edit it so it's just a little bit stronger than every other note. So there's only a slight adjustment there in the volume using the velocity there. The next thing we'll look at is copying and pasting a number of notes at the same time. So if I click on one note and then hold it down and press the other ones with my other hand, so I'm holding this first note with my pointer and then adding on my notes, I then can copy a whole section of notes and then paste them where I need to go. So I'll move the playhead and then I can paste them on the next bar if I need. So that makes copying and pasting a lot easier if you've got a lot of notes to copy and move around. To exit the edit screen, just click done in the top right hand corner and it will take you back to the screen with all of your tracks. When you're editing the blue loops on the iPad version, it's pretty much the same as editing the blue loops on the iMac version. So you can't really change the notes within the loop because they're pre-recorded loops and they're not MIDI tracks. So you can't change those notes within the blue loops. What I can show you is how to split a track. So it's pretty much the same as a green loop. You double tap on it and you can select what function you would like to use to edit your loop if you need. So I'm just showing you how to split, edit. If you need more space to move your loops around, I usually add in a few more bars at the end. So then I have more space to move my loop around if I need. This concludes tutorial 5. In our next tutorial 6, we'll be covering how to create a 4-chord progression using the chords C, A minor, F, G within GarageBand on the iMac and iPad. So stay tuned for tutorial 6, and thanks for listening.